Our sense of ourself comes from our thinking, our repetitive thinking. It gives us a sense of ourself. And when we come into something direct experience, even if it's really listening to something or really feeling something, there's no self in there. There's no narrative. And we find that threatening. Because there's no self in there sort of thinking about itself. We're all self-obsessed. And it just messes us up.
That's the ego.
Yeah. So when awareness comes into direct contact with a sensation in the belly, direct contact without the narrative, there's no room for ego. And the ego doesn't like that. What about me? So you notice when you're sitting here, you go into the sensation in the knee or the breath. The urge to go into the head and think about your problems is enormous. We're all the star of our own show. And that, you could say that is the primary obsession. In a sense, we're all addicted. We're addicted to self-centered thinking. That's the root, that's the right at the center of it all. Self-centered thinking. And it messes us up. But what we've got to do is watch this self in action, and you see it in the thoughts. It's there. That's why we label our thoughts. It's a brilliant thing to do over time. And particularly when there's a lot of emotion with the thoughts. And then you come, if there's anger, you come back into the felt experience in the body, which is the last thing we want to do. Because we want to stay in the head, because then I can justify it, how bad you've been to me. You're terrible. You've been terrible to me. And that's what we want. Oh, yeah. We'd rather be somebody who suffers than nobody who's free and happy. It's another primary addiction to be somebody. Even if it's victim, it doesn't matter. As long as I exist as a person separate from everybody else, and everybody else knows that, that's what I want. What the Buddha urged us to do was to grow up. That's his teachings. Grow up. Come on. When I lived in the retreat centre in North Wales, anybody been to North Wales? Yeah. And they had something called the West Wing, and it was leaning. Yeah, it was leaning. And so someone put scaffolding to keep it in place. I thought, yeah, okay. My sense of myself is kept together by my belief thoughts about me. And I believe them, I'm this sort of person. And so what practice is, it's like, as we label our thought, it's like loosening the knuckles on a scaffolding. Yeah. Very gradually loose. So the scaffolding is a bit looser. Now, obviously the metaphor falls down there because you don't want the scaffolding to fall. Yeah? But our sense of self can become very rigid. So somebody criticizes us in a certain way, we have a certain button that gets pressed, we react. Yeah? Because our sense of self has been like a balloon being punctured. Yeah? So as we label our thoughts and come into the direct experience of the body, our sense of self begins to be freer. I'm no longer caught up with my own needs, neurotic needs, my own wants at the expense of yours. Mine are more important than yours, of course, yeah, because they're mine. That begins to weaken. And my sense of self isn't caught up with how I appear to the world. And this is where compassion arises. Because I become as concerned with your needs as I am with mine. Yeah. This sense of self, me in here, separate from every other self out there, and I'm more important because I'm me, this begins to loosen. And what arises in its place is joy. Because when there's an absence of self, joy is natural. Unhappiness is what we do, happiness is what we are.